This segment has been sponsored by Pro Bikes Caribe. Pro Bikes Caribe, get yours today. Before we get into today's interview, hear a little bit about the book from the author themselves.
I'm Dimitri Valentine from Trinidad, and my book, Horrors from the Land of the Hummingbird, is a compilation of short horror stories set in Trinidad and Tobago, with tales of folklore creatures, black magic, and local retellings of famous stories. It brings darkness to an otherwise calm, tropical paradise. It's available on Amazon in both paperback and ebook format.
Greetings, listenership. Welcome to TLC, Tropical Literature Creatives, the podcast where we interview authors of Caribbean heritage about themselves and about their literary works. Today we have with us Dimitri Valentine, author of the book Horrors from the Land of the Hummingbird. Dimitri, welcome to Tropical Literature Creatives.
Thank you very much for having me.
Okay, well,
Very nice to be here. I look forward to the interview.
we're glad to have you. There's a question that I usually ask the authors who I interview. Essentially, let me give you this scenario. Imagine we encounter each other at the airport. I'm coming into Trinidad for the first time and you're leaving Trinidad. And I ask you, what advice would you give as to something I should try as I'm in Trinidad, whether it's a food, whether it's a drink, whether it's a place I should visit? What would you recommend to me, Dimitri?
Definitely, I would have to recommend a visit to Togo. In my opinion, it has some of the cleanest beaches up on that side, and the views that you would get while driving around on the normal roads can't be beat. Every single year, since I was 13 years old, we've been to Togo, and always an enjoyable experience.
Okay. I really like that. And a lot of persons usually recommend that persons try doubles. However, you're recommending that we just explore the landscape and Togo in particular, the North Coast. I like that.
I mean, doubles is something everybody would tell you. So, I wouldn't be so traditional, but yeah, doubles is a must. On your way to Togo, you could stop off and try the doubles.
I like that. On the way to Togo, have some doubles on the way. Right. I'm really excited to talk to you at this time because, in particular, at this time of the year, persons who are into literature in the Caribbean, we have something that's called Folklore Month. And interestingly enough, your writings in particular are based or are centered around folklore, horrors from the land of the hummingbird. But we'll get back to that. I just wanted to ask you a couple questions about yourself before we get into the book. Are you a full-time author
No
or is
problem.
are you a full-time author or is writing something that you do part-time?
I was a full-time author up until August of this year. After that, I became a full-time teacher,
Oh,
and I write when I get the time. I have a few manuscripts that just on the back burner, they already written, is just to go through the editing process, and to do that is to find the time, because teaching, I realize how much of your time it actually takes up. For teachers, is not that half two, half three, or three you finish school and okay, that is it, work done. I thought it was like that. Naively thought it was like that until I realized every evening you have stuff to do, not just the students have homework. So I have a very different view of my teachers now. And in terms of the writing, I do it as often as I could. Not as often as I used to, but for a year, a little over a year, I wrote every single day, full time.
Whoa. But how do you make that how or why did you make the transition from being full-time author to getting into teaching?
Well, when I had finished my bachelor's degree in education, it was kind of like free floating. You had to wait on the ministry, you had to wait on all these things to go through before you could actually be placed in a school. So that usually takes a long time, especially in Trinidad. It takes a long time for teachers to be placed.
Okay.
So I didn't want to just sit and do nothing. I actually went through a few different businesses, wood carving and stuff like that, different things to try and occupy my time, find a groove,
Wood
but
carving.
nothing fit the way, yeah.
Ah,
Um,
interesting.
briefly, briefly wood carving, like little axes, wooden wands,
Mm-hmm.
tiki pendants, stuff like that. Simple
Mm-hmm.
stuff I could learn off of YouTube. It didn't
Mm-hmm.
pan out the way I hoped it would. So I went to writing. I was always into writing ever since high school, poetry mostly.
Mm-hmm.
But to say
Mm-hmm.
write a book, I had never attempted to write a book before. And the first book that I published wasn't the first book that I had written. It was actually the second book I had written. The
Really?
first book I had ever written, yeah, the first book I had ever written, sadly, it is unpublished. It's sitting on a flash drive somewhere,
Why?
and it entails, I never got around to editing it, but it
Mm-hmm.
was based on the history of Trinidad with a supernatural twist. So
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
you have the English settling in Trinidad, a real supernatural story based
Mm-hmm.
around our history. I tried to make it as closely related to history as possible so that if people read it, they would say, you know, this could possibly be true if it was a cover-up
Ah,
story or something like that. So yeah,
I
I
like
like
that.
the supernatural twist.
Yeah, yeah. It has people wondering now. I mean, even though it's fiction, there's always that element of doubt. I like that. I like that.
I tried to draw a lot from accurate history. It had some gruesome times in Trinidad history that we seem to forget. And based
Mm.
around some of the places that we love to visit, it's just, history is something in Trinidad that is often forgotten. At least I think so, is often forgotten.
Yeah, there's this
But
saying that those who forget
yeah,
history are,
it was based
yeah,
around that. And
yeah,
those who forget history are bound to repeat it.
yes, yes, yes. So I could see that history is a passion of yours in addition to folklore because it seems to be reflected in your writings.
Yeah, you could say it. You could say it like that. I mean, I wouldn't consider myself an expert or anything like that. I'm good at researching. I'm good
Hmm.
at hearing old stories and tying them into like weird new stuff. The writing process, sorry, is in terms of me, I find it just a little weird to explain, difficult to explain.
Oh.
Because I would read something, for example, I read something in history.
Hmm.
And okay, yeah, the story is touching, is moving, is something that actually happened. But I would think to myself, if this was being written by a writer, how would they write it differently? View a story from history that is factual as a story. This kind of helped me to weave it with my own ideas. Yes, you could say that, yeah.
Hmm. I mean, I wouldn't lie. That's an interesting perspective, Dimitri. And I like
Well,
how,
writing has been part of my life for a while.
tell us a bit more about some of the manuscripts that you've written that haven't been published.
Well, that that first one I was just speaking about prior, the name of it is The Immortal Amerindian.
Hmm.
It was supposed to be a running series because the first book ended with the protagonist, who was a supernatural creature being buried on the island of Shaka Shikari before it was the colony that they used to isolate the Hansen disease patients on.
Or lepers,
Yeah,
leprous
so it
persons
was
who had
it was
leprosy.
set. Yeah,
Yes.
yeah, it was set. The last book was it ended there, and the second book was supposed to pick up with the person coming back to life, and they on the island, probably a century plus into the future. Everything different. All these people, he would have to meet them, interact with them. I just had this idea, but more ideas came up along the way, and old ideas seem dull in comparison, so they kind of fall off. But yeah, the Immortal Amerindian is one of the manuscripts I have. I
Hmm.
have a new pair of manuscripts where I wrote a love story, nothing horror or something completely out of my realm, just to see if I could do it.
Hmm.
At first,
Hmm.
it was a bit trying because the romance and stuff has no jump scares, no blood and guts, that kind of thing. It was more emotions and heartfelt emotions. So it was way out of my normal comfort zone. And what I had to do, I actually had to tie it in with something that I really love, which is early to late 90s, early 2000s punk rock music. So it's actually a love story based on punk rock music set in the early 2000s. And that is probably the most odd manuscripts I have. I wrote the two books one time and just put them down there and I say, okay, I will edit and get to the stuff. I have my girlfriend, she helps me as well. She is my main editor.
I
She
was
would edit all the stuff as best as she knows how.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I was going to ask you about that, because it sounds like, you do your writing, so I was curious as to who do the editing, but there you go, answering my question. Yeah, yeah, okay. Yeah, let me not interrupt you.
Yeah, no, that's okay, that's okay. I have help with editing, big help with the editing, because as something I realized after I wrote my first book is that writers don't see their own mistakes. They read the line how they know it to be in their minds while just glancing over the words. So, it's not like you're reading the words. And I find I miss a lot of errors, especially when I reread my work right after I've written it. So she does the initial edit. I would go back and do another edit. She would do another edit. And after 3 rounds of editing, we would go through the process of putting it up onto Amazon, which was another thing to learn on its own. But
Uh,
I have just those 3 manuscripts down for a while, and I'm hoping to get to them soon. But I'm learning quickly with this new job that might be a kind of far-fetched fantasy for a little while until I get more situated into the teaching profession.
Uh, all right. I mean, you mentioned two things. I mean, you mentioned, first of all, that sometimes, writers don't see their own mistakes. And I think that's not just true for writing. I mean, once it's that you're passionate about something, sometimes you're just too close to the project that you don't see the way that it could be improved, or little things that serve as stumbling blocks to the fulfillment of the process. So it's really great that you have that help in your girlfriend and your editor to be able to identify these mistakes and to correct them and to help you move forward. And the second thing that I really wanted to ask you about is that you mentioned Amazon, your book. So your book is self-published. You didn't go through traditional publishing methods.
No, I didn't go through traditional publishing methods. To be honest, I'm not too versed in what the traditional publishing methods would be in Trinidad, like the routes to take. Technology was something I was always familiar with, and Amazon is this big multi-million dollar or billion-dollar company that you hear about, everyone knows. To me, at that point in time, it just seemed like the perfect avenue. It has a lot of traffic. It might be easier and less cumbersome than trying to get something published, physically published in Trinidad, because it's a lot of footwork, it's a lot of back and forth, and the reader base is something you would have to watch to the demand for it, because local books, they tend to sell for higher prices than these books that are written in the States or elsewhere from around the world. And I don't know why that is. A few of the bookstores I would walk into on the local shelves, the books are very high priced. And it just seems fighting a losing battle to actually publish the traditional method. In my eyes, at least that is my opinion. I can't really knock it completely because I haven't tried it, but it just seemed a lot more cumbersome than learning the few things you do on Amazon to edit the document properly and upload it. And marketing that way would be a lot easier because it's already digital. So most of social media, well, all of social media is a digital media. So everything you would have to post and talk about it, rather be on TikTok, Facebook, and it's easy to share links and stuff like that. You have a physical book, you have to go through taking pictures, uploading the pictures, you have to get scans of the actual physical copies, how it would look. I just find it was a lot more cumbersome. And when you write something, I had the urge to publish it now. Like, I remember writing horrors and I was so adamant it has to go now. No, no, no. That editing seems so unnecessary, which I know is wrong, but that want to get your book out there as soon as you write it, it kind of something I can't really describe.
Mm-hmm.
It goes against all logic and all sense that I have in these matters to just finish writing it. I'm so excited. I want people to read this. It needs to be out now. And to me, Amazon provided that in the sense that it would be published and up a lot quicker than if I had gone a traditional route.
No, I mean, what you're saying is totally understandable and makes sense. A lot of persons are skeptical about the Amazon route just because, I mean, they don't know too much about it. So I guess you took the time to explore, to do your research, because that's one of the things that you said, you're good at research. Um, Explored it, you did the research, you understood the process, and here we go, published book. And I could also understand what you mentioned about how it is that you're eager to get it out. I mean, when you're passionate about something, you just really want to do that. But I'm imagining that you probably your editor, was able to give you a bit of, was able to help you, bring some logic back to the situation. You could correct me if I'm wrong and just say, here's what, let's just look it over before you hit the
Yeah,
publish
yeah,
button.
yeah, she's always there to bring me back down, so to say. Yeah, she is good. She's good guidance. She's very good guidance. And another reason for going the route with Amazon was the amount of things we would have needed. Then I was now out of university.
Hmm.
Finances weren't the best. And for Amazon, all we really needed was an account, a laptop, and a little bit of know-how, and it was possible to start to make money from simply writing something and not having to go through the trouble yet of creating physical books and distributing these physical books. Because I think the traditional route, it takes a certain amount of startup capital to get through it and to get done properly, as opposed to Amazon, where you would publish and you could do it with no money, a half decent laptop, the ability to write an account, a Trinidad bank account. And from there, it was just a few YouTube videos setting everything up. And it was scary at first
Hmm.
because linking cards and stuff online was something we had no experience with. We had no idea, okay, if we do this and we do get money, next thing you know, something goes wrong and all our hard work goes down the drain. It was scary at first, but after your first few months and you see, okay, you're actually getting paid, it eases the worry a bit. But even with Amazon, you have to understand, yes, you take up it takes absolutely nothing to get started. When you do start to get money, you start on the very, very low side of things. You probably see a few cents a day, if so much at first. And the more you promote, the more people start to talk about your books. And TikTok is one thing that actually really helps.
Ah,
Having a video go viral on TikTok helps book sales for us a lot, a lot, a lot. It really, really does. But
well,
is to get to that point. I do think to get to that point, to see that the cent value every day increase to okay $0.50, then you might reach $1 every day, and you would go up and up, and it is a slow, slow climb, but you would have moments where you would have big payoffs. And the possibility with Amazon that one of your books become a bestseller is an actual possibility. You know, the chance to sell, I mean, this is probably a long shot, but it is a long shot anyway. The chance to sell a thousand or a million books, it it exists and it there. It's just to do the promotion. It's just to get a few viral videos. It's to have the content up, and that is the avenue it providing you, and you're able to start with next to nothing. It just seemed to have a bigger upside to me over traditional publishing. At least here, I know in the States and in other countries, traditional publishing has a major function and a functional network. As opposed to here, if you're indie author, you have to learn the route for yourself. Have nobody else to teach you.
No, and how we put it like that, I mean, it may not, persons may not be there to teach you, but it sounds like once you have the desire, the information is out there. And as you said, it's scary at first. But once you get the ball rolling, once you see the sense, accumulating in value over time, it gives you confidence. In terms of the platform, I'm just curious. You mentioned that you would have had to, set it up, get the books out there and everything, marketing and stuff, etc. Is this something that the platform taught you? Is this something you had to do additional studies into for yourself, marketing and promotion?
Well, in terms of the marketing and promotion aspect, that is another aspect that my girlfriend would spearhead. She is a TikTok person. She familiar with the trending songs and is a lot of little pieces you
Mm-hmm,
would need
mm-hmm.
to create a video that would go viral. And she has more familiarity with those little pieces than myself. I would admit that much. TikTok is not something I am fond of. Facebook, yeah, Instagram, probably. Social media is not a big thing for me, which is where I struggle because that is the best place to promote. But luckily, I have the help and someone who has the creative eye, I should say, or insight, yeah, the creative insight. And
Yeah,
she's
you can
very familiar with all the trends.
yeah, you can say that. You can say that.
Yeah, she is the one who has all the knowledge of the social media. Usually, she creates the videos and she would post them, probably a video every 2 days. Both of us well, I am a teacher now and she's an aspiring teacher. She is doing her bachelor's degree.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
So now that she's on teaching practice, editing and these kinds of things on the back burner for a little while, but
Oh,
hopefully before December, other books would be published and another one, fingers crossed, another one in the horrors from the land of the Hummingbird series should be up, volume 2.
ah. All right, we'll be looking out. We're looking forward to that when the time does come around. I just want to touch on one thing, though. I mean, you mentioned that, a lot of the assistance, or I should say, a lot of the aid that you receive is from your girlfriend, who seems to be a social media person in addition to your editor. And it's a trend that I've noticed with a lot of authors. I mean, a lot of persons aren't really self-made, and a lot of success that persons usually achieve is through the working together, the teams that persons work together with. And I see the success, I see the progress of you and your team, working together to achieve the result that it is that you're set out to. And that is very commendable. And it's a lesson that other authors who are listening to this could really take a page out of take a page out of your book. That we're all not self-made. Sometimes to get things done, teamwork is it.
Exactly, is one of the most important things. And in terms of teamwork and working with her, I would say if I if I complete a manuscript, like in general, if I didn't have her there to push and edit, I would have a lot more unfinished, unpublished manuscripts. Because after I write, sometimes it feels a little daunting to go back and reread. You just want to get it work out there. So, those are um, occasional feelings when I write, but she does more than the social media aspect and the editing aspect. She motivates. There were a few times during the weeks, the first few months of the horror book being published, where no sales, no nothing at all. Because before we started with Sense, we started with 0.00, and it it takes you down a bit. It breaks you down a little bit. You have this thing here, and it has all your effort and your blood, sweat, and tears, so to say, and it good, or at least you're hoping it good, and you want other people to see too, but nobody giving it a chance. And it had days where that would have me depressed and feeling like life going nowhere because at that point in time, the teaching job that I have now wasn't even a thing. It wasn't. It wasn't a sure thing. It wasn't even something that was in consideration to happen even in the near future. It was a consideration to happen way, way down the line. So for a while, I put a lot into my books and I put all hope into my books. And it had days where I was very depressed and very sad at it not moving forward, it not going and nothing happening. And she would be the one to pick me up. She would be the one to tell me, well, write a next story. And this time, write this story different. Or try a different genre.
Mm-hmm.
Or probably read something that you used to like, get a little inspiration. And she would tap me back up and push me forward. And I honestly don't think I would be where I am in terms of my books if it wasn't for her. Because the ability to write, I had the ability before during high school and things like that. And now it's like, even though I have the ability, is the drive and the extra little push to get it over the edge. Because publishing a book is something when you do, you know it out there, and especially when you do it online, it's out there and it's not gonna it impossible to remove. Once you put something online, it's impossible to remove. So you have to have a certain level of confidence to do something like that. And confidence wasn't something I was pre-wired with. I wired with it a little bit now, but I wasn't pre-wired with it. And she was there for more than I could see, more than I could explain. It had a lot of little bits and pieces, a lot of little things that she helped with and motivated and pushed me forward. I only used to write poems and short stories, and she was the one with the idea to take it, put it together, and do something with it. So I would be grateful for that. I guess I would always be grateful for that. And the help, having that help is indescribable, amazing. To
Um,
have
your,
someone to actually help you with your dream.
I mean, your account is really encouraging and motivational to us who are listening, Dimitri. And we can't help but look forward to the other books that you spoke about. You said 2024, other stuff is coming out. I mean, we know that when stuff is coming out, it's Team Dimitri. So it sounds like it's good stuff, to look forward to.
I hope when it comes out, people read stuff and they fall in love with some of the stories. That's always my hope. It would be nice to get feedback ever so often. I hope I reach a point one day that I would be able to get feedback from the readers on a larger scale, and they tell me the things I could fix, the things I could change, or the things they love or don't love. And all feedback is good feedback.
I mean, one of the good
Yeah,
things
I
I
hope.
think, sorry to cut you across, but as you mentioned that, I think that one of the good things about the platform that you chose, Amazon, me, for example, I use Kindle to read books that are digital. And one of the features that is available there is I'm able to leave reviews on the books that I would read. I mean, the reviews that I understand, they don't just help the authors in terms of feedback, they actually help in terms of visibility. So the fact that you have chosen a digital platform that your books are available in this format, I think that's going to work in your favor, man. So the feedback that you're getting, I think once it is that you encourage persons to tell them to tell you what it is that they like and that sort of thing, it'll just be a matter of time.
Have my fingers crossed. Definitely have my fingers crossed.
And so much so, in fact, when it is I was going through your book, you wouldn't believe the story that I had liked the most it wasn't any of the major ones. It was something really simple. It was called I think it's the Demon Dog of Ramsaran Street. And it's a short story. I mean, you would
Yes,
it's a
yes.
short story, but personally, I liked it. I liked it because, well, I like the titles of all your stories because me being from Trinidad, all the places, all the titles are relatable. But the Demon Dog from Ramsaran Street, it's relatable to me because I spent a lot of time in Shogunas. I know Ramsaran Street. So when it is that you were describing these settings, I could say to myself, I know this place. I could think that I might have walked on that street. I might have been in that situation. And one of the good takeaways is that you don't explicitly identify, you don't call anything out by name, you don't identify anything by name or anything like that. but you're left with pieces of facts and information where you can come to a conclusion. I mean, I don't want to talk too much about the story. Persons who read the book, you have to read, The Demon Dog from Ramstrand Street for yourself to have an opinion. But that was one of my better takeaways from the list of stories that make up the book.
That funny that you mentioned that story. That was a favorite to write. It was really close to home for me in terms of the location. Is somewhere that I spent most of my Lyman time as a teen on
Mm-hmm.
Ramstrand Street. The place that was mentioned, I used to be inside there is somewhere familiar with me, my friends all the time. And that experience, it could have well fit into the dynamic of how it used to be with us when we used to hang out around that area.
So it seems
In
so.
terms of the Mhm.
No, I was just going to say, so these stories, they have like personal bearing. You use elements of your life in your writing.
Yeah, all of them, all of all of the stories, they have some of them are actually personal experiences. Some of them
Mm-hmm.
are experiences of family members that we grew up hearing about.
Mm-hmm.
Um, some are created just from my mind and visiting these places. I like to see the creepiness and everything. Creepiness to me is it peaceful. It's weird to say and it's probably weird to hear, but these creepy, spooky, kind of damp and cold, gloomy places, I find them peaceful. I find them comfortable.
I mean, the
Um,
literature has a place in folklore month, so there is a place for those thoughts for that kind of writing. Folklore month is it, so you keep it up, man.
I
Yeah,
find that when you leave stuff open-ended like that, the scariest thing that I could write is basically what I allow the writer to imagine for themselves. Because what I
exactly.
write, they would never see. Yeah, they would never see how I see the things that I write and I describe. So leaving it open-ended like that, it leaves it for interpretation, and usually what they create in their minds would be a lot scarier than what I would write on the page.
E-
So part of
Exactly.
that kind of horror is they scaring themselves.
Yeah, yeah. So you just leave it to our own imagination. I was just curious. The cover of your book, what was the inspiration for that?
Oh, and that came from the name. At the point in time, again, my girlfriend was doing a practicum and she was doing a social studies lesson.
Mm-hmm.
And I was trying to come up with a title for the book. She was doing something on emblems or names, something from particular to Trinidad. And Land of the Hummingbird came up, and she mentioned it, and it clicked, horrors from the Land of the Hummingbird. So she went and she got this skeletalized hummingbird and slapped it onto the cover. We layered the same thing twice, a red and a black, and against the white, so it matched the national flag colors.
Yeah,
Um,
when I saw that, I was thinking, I mean, it's kind of patriotic, but at the same time, it's kind of fitting with the entire theme of the book. So yeah, I mean, points for that, 100 points.
appreciate it. I appreciate it. It was one of those eureka moments when everything was finally put together, title, cover, everything was bound, and we got the first copy. It was like, yeah, this is it. This is the cover for this book.
What's next? What's next for Dimitri? I mean, been doing writing, you're doing teaching, and you're telling us about things that are happening in 2024. Do you have anything planned personally that we should look forward to as readers?
Well, a new horror book, that is for sure. That would be for sure. A new horror book, Horror, Some Land of the Hummingbird, Volume 2. I
Okay.
will try my best to get that out early 2024, but with my new job, things might get tied up. But I want to get that book out by
Okay. Okay. All right. Well, let's just take a quick break, and I'll return to this conversation shortly.
then. No problem.
All right, listenership. We just came back from our break, and I just have a couple of questions before we end this afternoon session. Dimitri, I personally, I like your approach to books in that how it is that you incorporate horror, folklore together with history. Um, what's your point of view? What are your thoughts on your book, your writings being used in schools to help persons with their reading?
That is something I would definitely love. Once it's geared to a more high school audience,
Mhm,
because
mhm,
given the nature and the content, primary school would definitely be out of the realms. There are a couple stories that doesn't have the gruesome details that would be suitable.
mhm.
Um, this one called Monster Underneath My Bed. It was kind of rhymey and follow a kind of poem rhyming scheme the entire story. That one I read for my class, and they seemed to enjoy it. They seemed to have enjoyed it. None of
Ah,
them were really scared, which was a good thing. So I would be glad to see the book in schools. Be that would definitely be a dream come true.
okay, I mean that's good to hear. My other question is, in terms of, well, listening to your account, you'd have said that there was a time when you would write nearly every day. For persons who want to take writing seriously, well, what advice do you have for them?
Well, some days you're gonna wake up and you're gonna think, gosh, I'm gonna be doing this again. And then you would start to think ahead and tell yourself, okay, I'm gonna be doing this tomorrow and the next day and the next day. When you think like that, you would more or less kill your energy and your enthusiasm, your inspiration as well. It would be harder to find inspiration. You wouldn't be able to avoid days like those. So, best advice I could offer would be don't let days like those turn into weeks like those because they would go to months like those, and then before you know it, your writing would be something of the past. So I guess that's the best advice I could give. Have the days, but have the drive and the understanding to know that you need to push in the coming days after you have had your off day, so to say. Yeah, that's the best advice I could give.
But that pretty much brings us to the end of our interview at this time. So Dimitri, thank you very much for making the time to answer the questions that we'd have had, and for the persons who would have read your work, for them to have a unique perspective on the work and the guy who would have done the writing and the support that he would have gotten in order to have this book that we enjoy being available to us. Anything that you want to share with the listeners before the interview ends at this time?
One thing I would say to writers especially, always keep at it. Never give up because someone, somewhere out there, gonna love what you write. And that feeling is an extraordinary feeling. And is one worth having at least once in your life.
Okay. Good stuff, man, Dimitri. Good stuff. Listenership, Dimitri, author of the book Horrors from the Land of the Hummingbird. Good read, especially for Folklore Month. Get your copy. But yeah, that was the question I had to ask you, Dimitri. Where can persons get copies of your books?
I know aside from Amazon, they are in Nigel Arcan, but copies there would be very limited because at that point in time we had finances weren't as okay as they were now. So
Hmm.
ordering large quantities to supply stock for these bookstores was a little bit difficult. So you might find stray copies in Nigel Arcan, but they are available on Amazon in paperback and ebook format.
Ah, okay. Oh, and well, I got a copy of your book via Kindle. So yeah, Kindle is a good option as well. So all right, but that brings us to the end. Thank you again, Dimitri. Thank you again, listenership, for tuning in. And we're looking forward to hearing more popular and successful things about you, Dimitri. Take care.
Thanks for having me.
Okay. You've been listening to TLC, Tropical Literature Creators. If you've heard something of interest or something you like, reach out to us. Reach out to our authors. Follow us on social media. We look forward to hearing from you.